6 days until we're supposed to have our first golf event here. I know it's late in the season, but we're having a family event here coming up at the end of the week with a whole bunch of guests coming for that too. My whole goal all along was to have this golf green ready for this event at the end of October. It's not ideal necessarily, just depending on our weather here. It could be really cold. The weather's been cooperating temperature-wise, but we have not had any rain basically since I seeded this bent grass over top of the ryegrass that was there. And I want to show you quickly what that's looking like, and then I'm going to be preparing this week to hopefully have this ready to play. It putts right now. Is it 100% perfect being 2 months old? Definitely not, but I think it's going to be something that's at least playable for now. I'm not sure if this is going to show very well on camera right here. The ryegrass is actually really starting to shut down in terms of growth. It's not doing a whole lot anymore. The bent grass seems still pretty happy. I'm getting quite a bit of clippings off of here, but right here is a big patch of ryegrass. You can definitely tell it's shiny, got a little bit bigger leaf blade, not quite as tight together right here. And then right next to it, you have the bent grass, which just grows so nice and tight, especially when you're mowing. I'm at 0.190 on this right now, so nothing super low. I did not want to stress it out too much or bring it too low and have issues here at the late season. Next year I'll be trying to get it a little lower, obviously. I've noticed this thing is just starting to spread aggressively into all of these spots, and I think the lower that we're going to go, it's going to start to stress this ryegrass a little bit more, and then this is just going to continue to take over. It does not take long for it to spread all throughout these areas. I've seen it spread aggressively already into a whole lot of this green from where I started, so I know next year, as long as things go well next year, I think this is going to take over the majority of it pretty quickly. So then the other thing that happened was I did have some fertilizer burn just in this spot down in here, and this isn't going to show too well on camera probably either, but I do have tiny little bent grass plants all throughout here now. It is starting to cover these spots, and it's even in the last few weeks, it's definitely covered a lot more of this area than was here before. So I was hoping to get to 100% coverage before the event. Not quite going to get there, I don't think, but this is totally fine once you roll over it with the mower and you can putt across it and everything, and it just is pretty flattened out here. But I do have some good plants growing in here yet. We'll see if they survive upcoming cold as we get into November probably, since they are fairly young yet. I might actually end up getting a cover for the green. I haven't decided yet. It would help to get this thing going again in the spring too, maybe a few weeks earlier than all of the surrounding grass that doesn't have any cover on it, but we'll see if I do that or not. You can see a whole area like this, all bent grass over here, just beautiful. Just a quick update here on this overseeded area that I did about a month ago or so. I have raccoons digging in here. I got a mole in here right now. It's causing a bunch of problems. It's about as good as it can get for that little process that I did. It only took a couple hours to get that done. If you haven't seen that video, you want a quick turnaround on something. Obviously it's a little late this season, but going into next season, that would be the process. And this definitely turned things around pretty quickly, aside from all that damage that I have right now. And this right here is a bluegrass plot. It's one of the cultivars that is in my elite mix that I just did a mono stand of over here just to see what it looked like on its own. It's taken really about until now, which is just over a year's time, I think, to get to a mature looking bluegrass, which is kind of typical. It's a slow grass to get going and you get to maturity, but now the color looks fantastic. Really happy with this one, so I just wanted to do a quick update on that. These two are both probably in need of a mow, but this is the bent grass practice green, or an area that I can pull plugs from in case there's some damage. That was the ryegrass practice green over there, which I just did a video update on recently, so check that out if you want to learn more about that. A couple of quick changes overall. You can actually see here so many raccoons digging over here too. Anything that is irrigated right now in any of these plots, they are going crazy because I'm pretty much the only one probably anywhere within miles from here that's watering, and they're looking for earthworms and things to eat. So I really can't do a whole lot about it at this point, but they do a lot of digging every night. These were my non-irrigated plots, but I decided to plant grass in between all of this so that I can mow it as one plot, and it's a lot easier. I went 3 seasons with that, no issues really over here. This is really great soil back in this corner, so I didn't have any issues with them being non-irrigated even in the droughts that we've been having. So now I think I'm going to do a little more of high cut testing on all of these. Have ryegrass, bluegrass, fine fescue, and then 3 tall fescues over there. So I think I'm going to do some different testing with that ongoing, but got everything planted in the middle. It's about a month and a half old now, and so I have grass in between everything and can mow it all as one. Inside my That Exmark is by far the best rotary mower I have ever used. Not even close. The cut quality on that thing is just amazing. I'm cutting around the green at 1.25 inches, same as the big ryegrass field up there that shoots down onto here. Every time I use that machine, I am still amazed that it is a rotary mower and giving me the quality of cut that I get out of that thing. So if you have any larger property or you have maybe a larger yard in town, they do make some smaller zero turns as well. Highly recommend the Exmark for that. Everything over here on the main 6 plots is kind of starting to check out for the season, but same thing over here. I seeded grass in between all of these, so same thing here. It's ryegrass closest, then fescue, then bluegrass, and I just basically extended out the plots a little farther. Same type of deal. I just wanted to be able to mow this whole thing as one. Definitely are some issues with that. I just did a quick job on trying to level in between the plots, but some of the soil had sunk down there, so it's not quite 100% level. So in the future, I may redo this whole area and make it nice and smooth and do all that. But for now, I needed some grass in between these things so I could mow this and so that it looked like one grass piece at least. I seeded all that stuff right at the beginning of August or so to hopefully give it enough time to get growing and that it looks fairly decent for this event, and I think I accomplished that at least. Low cut plots over here, I've kept everything at 1.25 inches this season. Not quite as low as last year, but I just been using my zero turn. Ryegrass here, bluegrass here. This one is tall fescue, and then that is fine fescue. And you can see these dry spots in between here. It's just where irrigation is not hitting because these are irrigated just in squares, so that's how that's working out. But over here, you can see just how dry we are. This is tall fescue, closest to us. This right here is Kentucky 31, which rarely looks this dry, but it is extremely dry here. And then this plot out here was my shade mix put into full sun, so it's a predominantly fine fescue, and I just wanted to see over the years if that was going to withstand the full sun and a lot of heat without watering. So that's all pretty crispy too. Another thing to show how dry we are is this is the micro clover plot. So for those of you who are looking at clover as an alternative, maybe not so good at drought tolerance. You can see a spot right here where I am not getting irrigation coverage. I had to change all of these heads in here to 360 so that I could cover these middle sections. These were all squared off shooting into just the plot, but I needed some way to cover this, so I changed these heads right over into here to a 360 so it's covering all this, but it's not quite reaching that spot right there, so I may have to adjust something. We'll figure that out at some point, but that is what that is right there. It's just a dry spot. So up here now on the windy area of the front yard, I guess the whole front is pretty windy all the time, but about mid-season or so, I was having some issues real mowing this just because of how thick it is, how much thatch is there. I need to do some things with that in the future. It also was a time thing. I decided, hey, the zero turn, I'm already mowing right next to it for the big field. I might as well just go ahead and do the front yard too. So this is at 2 inches. I didn't really do as much fertilizer on this year either, trying to keep the growth a little bit more minimal. Since I wasn't mowing quite as often and doing all that, I just decided, let's just do some granular here a couple times in the fall and let it be, because it does need some work, and whether I get to that in the spring, I don't know. But I would like to pretty aggressively dethatch it and then probably aerate, overseed, do all that, and maybe I can get back to real mowing it someday. But the time commitment with that is a lot on a pretty big area like this, and so it's been really nice to have the zero turn do this. So the whole big front field here of ryegrass just barely hanging on, if we're honest with ourselves. It is a grass that really likes water, and also what I have learned here on this first season is that this field, the soil here is pretty rough as far as being kind of sandy. There's not a lot of organic matter there. With the slope that is here, most of the water that happens when we do get rain actually tends to run off, especially if there's any crustiness on top. It does not soak in very well, so I just do not have a lot of water that gets onto this field. So long long term, I'm really gonna have to think about that. Next spring, I will likely overseed something. We're gonna see how it looks in the spring, but really focusing on drought resistant cultivars, really focusing on possibly adding in a little bit of bluegrass, maybe even some fine fescue, some of the ones that are the most drought tolerant. I've done some pretty extensive research on that, and so I have some ideas on what I might do, but I'd have to put all that plan into action here in the future. And that's the thing about lawns, is that you just have to adjust your plan as you go. Sometimes you have a plan and sometimes it just doesn't work exactly like you thought it was going to. And honestly, for how dry it is and how much heat we've had here at the end of the year with no humidity, basically taking all the moisture out of the ground every single day, I am not unhappy with what I have left here, but it is definitely thinned out a lot. And I'm gonna show you one of the worst spots right here right now. So we got an area like this, which is on the side hill. It was already pretty compacted here because we had to compact this in so that the water flows the right way. But this is just a pretty good example of what it looks like when it's basically toast. I mean, there are definitely plants in here, and that's the stuff that I try to get into a lot of the bags that I sell, but also some of the things that I'm gonna look at in the future is making sure to push towards those things that have been already tested and have been known to survive some pretty good drought. This is all ryegrass, so there is something in here that is surviving, but there's a lot of stuff that died off, and just because of the soil, just because of the harsh conditions that we've had here recently and throughout the summer.
Clearly, you're waiting for the right sign. Oh, really? Are you too far gone? You try to give yourself something new, afraid to live so far, far from the middle. Would it be so bad to come unglued? I'm seeing.
Welcome to the back 9 green. This is 100% bent grass. Seeded this pretty late for bent grass here. It was early September or so. Usually that's not going to be a lot of time to get it going before it gets too cold, but because of this fall that we've had right now, this stuff is just so aggressive. Like I said, with the warmer temperatures, I did get my irrigation main line brought back to right over here on the edge of this green, and I just have a quick coupler put there so I hook up my sprinkler, and that's how I did all the watering and how I'm doing all the watering for this. Probably next year I do have the wiring brought down here as well that I can put sprinkler heads around this. I'll still run off of my well. That's probably what I will do eventually, but for right now, I've just been doing this with a sprinkler, and as you can see, that's been working okay, as long as you can come down here and move it around. Today I was using the Hudson Star. This is a manual push reel mower, the Cadillac of push reel mowers. This thing is built like a tank, and I actually got this sent to me way back when I was at my old property, and it was really built for a lot lower cut, and so on the ryegrass there that was cut a little bit taller, about 3/4 of an inch, it just was not really the machine for that, so I tested it out a few times, but it's not really made for that height of grass, and with as many blades as on the reel, has a hard time with that. But it is made for this. It's used on lots of different courses throughout the country, PGA courses, for tight areas or hard to mow areas, or just somewhere that it needs to get a small machine into and you can't get the regular machines in there. Or for someone like a homeowner like this, you can use it on your practice green, on your green in your backyard, or also a huge full-size green here that I didn't want to mow yet with my main machine because I'd have to transport it back here, change the height of cut, do all of that stuff, and I do have a few twigs and a few things here and there in this thing yet that are not 100% cleaned out. So I just decided I'm going to use that thing, and I'm going to be honest, I have put this thing through hell this season. Mowing those practice areas down there, hitting dirt with the reel, doing lots of things that you should not do with reel mowers but just didn't have an option. So I've backlapped it a few times. It has just been holding up so well for me. Expensive machine, but they are built to last. So I think for a small area, for sure, if you're not wanting to get into the powered thing, I would definitely recommend it. So the idea back here was just too perfect of a spot. I have 9 tee boxes on the front section hitting onto that green, 9 tee boxes back here. Anywhere that you see a straw blanket in this footage here, there's 9 tee boxes out here hitting onto this one. And what I quickly realized out front was that I just wanted to be able to use my driver. It just doesn't feel exactly like a full course unless you have a spot where you can actually use your driver. So way back in the back, hitting onto this dogleg fairway, we have about a 400-yard shot. So that allows you to use driver. This green is quite a bit bigger than the front one. I have not actually measured it out yet. I didn't even have a plan what this was going to look like when I put the bent grass seed out. I just threw the seed out, and And then as soon as I realized where it came up, I put flags around to mark it and I started mowing that. But I really didn't have an idea of the shape because this was just bare soil and I couldn't see it. That bent grass seed is so fine that I just started on an area and that's what it became. So it is a little bit larger than I anticipated, but that's going to make it quite a challenge because the way that the land lays here, there's a bit of a slope down towards this direction, which is good because the water will run off this way. It's going to be quite a challenge, I think, on this green for putting, but I did not want to do a lot of excavation work. I just left things pretty much as it was, tilled this ground, smoothed it out with the Ventrac, let things settle, smoothed it out again, and then I just threw down the seed and here we are. A very picturesque area back here. I absolutely love it. I think it's going to turn into something really cool in the future. But that's the back 9 green. I'm standing here on about a 2.5 acre fairway. I wanted to get this seeded this season, but it just didn't work out with the way that the ground needed to kind of settle after doing some tilling work, and also just no rain whatsoever. So there was really no hope for me putting seed out here and having it grow, yet somehow looks like the weeds haven't had a problem with that despite not having any rain. But I want to let this settle. I'm probably going to put out a cover crop this season. That's what I did on the first couple seasons out on the front. Really helps to start to clean out some of the weeds and get some structure back into the soil too, because the last thing I want to do is get this whole thing seeded, come out here the first couple mows and realize that it's really bumpy. I'm very, very happy with the front part and how much time and effort it took to get it as smooth as it is, but it was definitely worth it in the end. So I'm not going to rush it out here either. I'm going to take my time, do it the right way, and make sure that it ends up turning out the way that I want. Now, what grass I'm going to put out here, I had a custom mix of some very drought tolerant bluegrasses and ryegrass mix put together for this area, but I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with that or not. I may actually look at doing some Bermuda grass back here. But I'm going to see my Bermuda plot. It's dormant now, but I'm going to see when it gets back into green up. I didn't really look this season too closely at exactly what date that was, but throughout the season I've done nothing to that plot and it did great with basically nothing done to it. So if I could have a lower maintenance area back here. Also, it's again full sun, very warm and windy back here, so I've just been trying to make a decision on what I want to do grass type wise. Otherwise, if I do the ryegrass bluegrass mix, it's likely going to be looking pretty dormant and dry for most of that summer season, so I just got to make a decision. Down in the shaded area looks about as you would expect without any irrigation. I've had a lot of raccoons digging down here too, so this area definitely pretty bumpy. And then we'll go down to the bottom here in a second where pretty much covered in leaves, and I need to get that mowed up and mulched up here, but that'll happen soon. And then back here is probably the best area. Like I said, all of this non-irrigated, so right behind me, this is all tall fescue. I've been testing this in more of these shady sections, and I've been finding that it does really, really well in even some pretty dense shade. So I talked about this. Hopefully, eventually I'm going to add it to the bottom area, which we'll go down to. Add that to the fine fescue that's down there, just because it's having some difficulties with these super dry falls that we're having, super dry end to summer, and then the deer traffic that I have down there. So this is a fine fescue, at least what you can see of it with all the leaves. You definitely tell it is still green down in there. It's just the thickness is not quite what it was before, so I think that adding something that's a little more traffic tolerant to it too for these dry parts of the year is going to be something that helps. For how dry it is right now, this actually looks better than I expected that it would. So I'm pretty happy with that. I just need to get down here, like I said, and clean up these leaves as I got a few trees left, so I'll probably wait just a little bit longer and then just mulch these all up. Well, I definitely didn't think it'd be over 80 degrees for this late October update that I usually do towards the end of the season to just show you some of the end results of things. But that's where we're sitting today. I'm still wearing shorts. Weird end to the season with very, very dry weather. Hopefully we can maybe get some rain here yet at the end of fall going into winter, or next spring we have a good spring, but you never know. So thank you so much for watching today, and we'll see you next time.